I'd always thought Christmas Eve at my parents' townhouse in Queen Anne, Seattle, would be warm and predictable. Stockings by the fireplace, cinnamon-scented candles, the glow of the Space Needle through the window. I'm Sarah Thompson, 28, and this year I'd flown in from Portland to celebrate with my older brother Alex, 30, and my best friend Claire, 29. The table was set with my mom's famous honey-glazed ham and Dad's buttery mashed potatoes. Everything felt normal, until Laura, my mom, cleared her throat and reached for an envelope embossed with Evergreen Lending's logo. "Sarah, I'm sorry," she said, voice trembling. "I had to withdraw your entire $25,000 0 cents wedding fund." Alex's fork clattered against his plate. His phone slipped from his hand, lighting up with a text from Dad. "Transfer approved." Claire's lips twitched, her eyes darting toward the hallway as if about to speak but stopping short. I felt my chest tighten as I unfolded the letter. A notice of withdrawal dated the day before, my name printed in cold black font. And when Mom looked me dead in the eye, she whispered, "Sarah, your brother isn't Dad's biological son." Ready to dive deeper into Sarah's world and uncover the twists that await? Keep reading to join her on this journey of betrayal, resilience, and ultimate redemption. I've always believed that the person I am today was shaped long before that Christmas Eve bombshell, rooted in a tapestry of family rituals, high expectations, and steadfast friendships. Growing up in our Queen Anne townhouse, I was the kid who tagged along on what felt like daily mortgage signings with my dad, Michael Thompson, now 58 and one of Microsoft's quietly brilliant software engineers. I still remember the pride bubbling in his voice when I was 10 and clutched the sold sign in front of that craftsman-style house. He grinned and told me, "Sarah, one day this place will hold all our stories." Back then, I didn't realize how literal he'd be. Mom, Laura, 55 and formerly a marketing director at Amazon, traded her corner office for full-time family CEO duty 5 years ago. Our kitchen always smelled of her color-coded calendars and glossy expense reports. She had a label for everything, from our emergency contacts taped to the fridge to the exact balance of our joint checking account. When Jason and I got engaged last spring, she vaulted into wedding planner mode, opening a Sarah Thompson wedding fund and transferring $25,000, 0 cents, from her savings. She even laminated a list, ranking permitted expenses from venue deposits to floral arrangements, and teased that I'd have to apply 6 months before the wedding just to access my own money. I laughed it off, but somewhere behind her meticulous smile, I caught a flicker of a worry that she feared letting go of control. Then there's my brother Alex, 30 now but forever my big protector. He could have taken the straight path into corporate tech, but instead he's the sous chef at Union Street Cafe, Seattle's latest love letter to Pacific Northwest comfort food. He paid off $40,000, 0 cents, in student loans by flipping vintage furniture on the side and rents a cozy Capitol Hill studio for $1,500, 0 cents a month. Alex and I baked oatmeal chocolate chip cookies together as kids, our stress relief recipe, and he's the one I call at 2 a.m. when the world feels too heavy. He always answers with, "Breathe in, breathe out, I've got you." And Claire, my ride or die since middle school, is 29, an operations manager at Starbucks, and the person who still sends me a voice note every Friday at 7 a.m. with a pep talk that can kickstart my whole weekend. She stayed up with me during my first broken heart in college, and when I nearly tanked that marketing campaign last year, she literally slept on my couch to proofread my panic-stricken emails. Claire has a way of reminding me that even the sharpest edges of failure can be softened with a little laughter, and that I'm never alone in the trenches. On the Miller side, Jason's family brings its own blend of warmth and pressure. Jason, 30 and a veterinary doctor in Portland, grew up in a modest ranch-style house in Tigard, Oregon. His mother, Mary, 60, was a school principal who carried her clipboard everywhere. His father, Robert, 62, ran a small auto repair shop downtown. They have 2 nieces, Julia, 25, and Emma, 27, who still invade the Saturday farmers market in Portland, convinced that local produce cures all. When Jason and I first met at a pet adoption fair, he was coaxing a terrified dachshund named Ruby out of her crate, and told me, "I rescue more than animals, I rescue hope." In that moment, I saw a man whose compassion wasn't measured by profit margins or spreadsheets, but by the tenderness in his touch and the sincerity of his words. All these threads wove me into someone who aimed for a six-figure salary by 25, a goal I met at 24, but whose idea of success was quietly unraveling under the weight of unseen mortgages, silent expectations, and unspoken financial games. That simmering tension was already growing long before I uncovered Mom's hidden journal tucked behind her finance textbooks. I had assumed it was a collection of marketing case studies, but inside were pages of family projections, notes about breaking even on Sarah's wedding by Q4, plans to liquidate assets if emergency funds dipped too low, and chilling default timelines for our $750,000 0-cents mortgage if cash flow dried up. I bookmarked those pages, heart-pounding, but hesitated to confront her. Because what felt frantic in her pen strokes also felt like love, desperate to protect us. Then came the 2:70 a.m. FaceTime call that nearly unraveled everything. Jason's phone buzzed with an unknown number. He answered only for me to hear Mom's hushed voice begging Jason, "Sweetie, can you cover another $10,000 0-cents for the Miller Trust? It's urgent." He came back and insisted it was a scam, blocked the number, and only later did we realize the call had originated from our own house line. Most recently, Alex texted me a photo of a $5,000 0-cents withdrawal labeled family gifts. He brushed it off as Mom's doing. "Don't worry about it," he said. But the money had come straight from my wedding fund account. He promised to fix it before Christmas, but I'd never have imagined my entire $25,000 0-cents would vanish in one swift move. Through each revelation, Claire anchored me. The moment I texted, "I can't trust my own bank account," her reply pinged back 10 seconds later, "Pack your bags. I'm on a red-eye to Seattle. We're solving this." And Jason, always my harbor in the storm, stood by my side, his steady presence reminding me that no conspiracy could withstand the power of our love. Now, looking back on these connections, I see how every family quirk, every buried journal page, and every midnight plea converged to lead me here, on the brink of confrontation. The question looming over me isn't just about money or betrayal. It's about who I choose to be. Am I the obedient daughter tethered to their plans, or the woman who breaks free to write her own story? As dawn breaks over Queen Anne, I feel the weight of all I've learned, and I know the next chapter, where I face my past head-on and reclaim my future, is about to begin. That morning started like any other, Claire's cheery "Good morning, warrior" pinging my phone at 7:00 a.m. Pacific, followed by Jason's text, "Coffee at Pike Place," but by 10:15 my world had tilted. I was staring at an email from Evergreen Lending titled, "Notice of Repossession," addressed not to Alex or Dad, but to me, and dated the day before. My stomach dropped as I scrolled through the details. Our Queen Anne townhouse, mortgaged for $750,000 0-cents, had fallen into arrears. According to their records, I'd missed 3 consecutive payments, totaling $9,450 0-cents. I blinked at the screen, certain it was a glitch. I'd been making my portion of the mortgage faithfully since Jason and I moved in last year, and certainly my parents had never mentioned a hitch. My heart pounding, I grabbed Alex's phone off the counter. "Read that again," I murmured, voice tight. He swiped to the same email, frowning. "This was sent to my address," he said. "Looks like whoever registered the loan used your email by mistake." My mind spun. A clerical error, or a deliberate move to divert attention from something bigger? I forwarded the message to Claire, who replied within seconds. I'm Googling evergreen lending now, hold tight. I spent the rest of the morning combing through our bank statements. That's when I spotted it. A text message from Mom, buried among grocery receipts and Uber Eats charges. Sent to Dad's phone 3 nights ago at 2:04 a.m. It read, "Don't let Sarah see the $20,000. 0 cents withdrawal." My pulse raced. What withdrawal? I opened our joint checking account history and froze. Exactly $20,000, 0 cents had disappeared 2 days earlier, labeled simply, Family Emergency Fund. But no one had ever mentioned tapping into it, certainly not me. By noon, flanked by steaming lattes at Jason's favorite stall near the fish market, I laid it all out. "An eviction notice addressed to me," I said, voice barely above a whisper, "and a mysterious $20,000, 0 cents missing from my account." Jason reached across the table, his hand warm around mine. "Let's get to the bottom of it," he said, squeezing my fingers. His calm steadied me, but I could feel panic coiling tighter. After lunch, I called Claire. "Pack a bag," she ordered. "I'm booking the next flight to Seattle." She'd already uncovered that Evergreen Lending's phone number traced back to a call center 3 hours north, and that their site used boilerplate templates prone to errors. "But the bank records? That's our next step," she said. Determined to understand how my own finances had been hijacked, I logged into my online banking portal. The account name read Sarah Thompson Wedding Fund, the $25,000, 0 cents Mom had set aside 6 months ago. Beneath it, I saw a transfer of $5,000, 0 cents dated 2 weeks prior, tagged family gifts, which Alex had earlier assured me was a joke. Beneath that, the $20,000, 0 cents emergency transfer, and worst of all, an automated withdrawal of $3,450, 0 cents for the past mortgage payment that never reached the lender. I grabbed Alex's journal from his desk, a weathered hardcover notebook he'd left open on the kitchen remodel page, and flipped through until I found an entry dated last month. "The family's financial house of cards might collapse soon. Sarah won't see it coming." My hands shook. Alex had known something was up, long before I did. That evening, after Jason tucked me into bed with a cup of chamomile tea, I stared at the ceiling, replaying the day's revelations. My phone buzzed with a photo sent by Claire, a small potted succulent, tagged stress relief, with a note, "Plant this on your windowsill, and remember you're not alone." I smiled through tears. Around the same time, Jason sent me a calendar invite, Pike Place strategy session, tomorrow at 8 a.m. As I drifted off, I realized the first cracks had appeared not in some distant crisis, but in the everyday things I trusted. Emails, bank statements, casual texts. The people I loved most had begun moving pieces on a board I didn't even know existed. And now, with proof of late payments, secret withdrawals, and cryptic journal warnings, I knew that I'd have to face them all. Mom, Dad, Alex, even Claire and Jason, who'd suddenly become my co-conspirators in uncovering the truth. Tomorrow, I vowed, I would start rebuilding from the rubble, but tonight, I let myself collapse into sleep, clutching that little succulent as if it held all the hope I'd need for the battles ahead. That afternoon, Jason and I met my parents at Harvest Cafe on Capitol Hill, and as the light filtered through the tall windows, I felt my heart hammering against my ribs. Sliding into the booth opposite Mom and Dad, Michael and Laura Thompson, I cleared my throat and slid my tablet across the table, a PDF of our bank statement showing the wedding fund account drained in 3 withdrawals, $5,000, 0 cents labeled family gift, $20,000, 0 cents emergency fund, and a final $0, 0 cents balance. Dad's eyes darted over the numbers, mumbling that it had to be a mistake, but I shook my head and reminded him that it happened the day before, that FaceTime call at 2:17 a.m. when Mom begged Jason for $10,000, 0 cents for the Miller Trust. Mom's carefully curated smile faltered and she clutched her phone, stammering that it was for a family emergency tied to her gallery. I pressed play on an audio clip I'd secretly saved. Mom's voice, admitting she'd redirected my wedding money to save her failing art business, and watched her eyes well with tears. Dad tried to explain that she was only protecting us, but I countered that protection doesn't look like deceit. Then, I opened a video file from our garage camera, Laura's gloved hand entering the safe code behind Dad's tool bench, prying open envelopes stamped "Wedding Fund" and slipping them into her tote. My chest tightened as the proof played out in grainy black and white. Before Mom could respond, Jessica, the cafe barista, emerged from the kitchen and approached our table, slipping me a folded receipt showing she'd approved one of those $5,000 0-cent transfers in her role at the bank. Mom's college roommate pulling strings from the inside, just like a clandestine accomplice. As Jessica ducked back into the kitchen, my jaw still dropped. Dad slumped further into his seat, and Mom's tears fell in silent apology. Then, out of nowhere, Robert Miller, my gentle, soft-spoken father-in-law, stepped in, holding an email printout from Laura to Mary Miller, asking her to loan $10,000, 0 cents, for unexpected financial obligations without my knowledge. The email, sent 2 weeks before Christmas, revealed how deeply he'd drawn her into the scheme. My parents were speechless, and all around us the once cozy cafe felt oppressively silent. At that moment, my phone buzzed with a FaceTime from Alex, in his chef's whites at Union Street Cafe. He held up a napkin emblazoned with "Stay Strong," and mouthed, "I'm proud of you," reminding me that I wasn't alone. Jason then handed me a small folded note that simply read, "My always," his promise that he would stand by me through every twist and turn. I closed the tablet and looked at my parents, my voice calm but unyielding as I told them I wasn't seeking apologies but accountability and repayment, and that tomorrow I would be meeting with a lawyer in downtown Seattle and I expected them to join me. Stepping out into the cool Puget Sound breeze that evening, I felt the sting of betrayal, but also a hard-won clarity. I was no longer the powerless daughter in their narrative. I was Sarah Thompson, brave enough to confront the ones I loved most, and fierce enough to demand the respect I deserved. Tomorrow the real work would begin, but tonight I savored a quiet victory. I had faced my deepest betrayal, and refused to back down. I slammed the front door behind me and bolted every lock, deadbolt, chain, even the sliding latch on the window, until the soft click of each mechanism felt like a barricade against the world. My breath came in ragged spurts, and I sank to the floor of my Queen Anne bedroom, clutching my knees to my chest as tears stung behind my closed eyelids. I thought I knew what grief felt like, losing my first dog in college, the sting of a failed promotion. But this was different. This was the collapse of everything I believed about my family, my safety net shredded by the ones who should have protected me. I pressed my cheek against the cool hardwood floor and let the sobs come, each one racking my torso until it felt like my heart would break through my ribcage. Memories of Harvest Cafe replayed in my mind. The sickening relief I felt when the evidence rolled across the screen, immediately followed by the crushing guilt of knowing those revelations had torn my mother to pieces. I'd demanded repayment, but at what cost? The person I'd called Mom was now a stranger who had rifled through my savings like a thief. My phone buzzed on the bedside table. I reached for it with trembling fingers and saw Claire's name lighting up the screen. "Sarah, it's me," she said immediately, voice low and urgent. "I'm at the airport. I couldn't wait. Where are you?" My vision blurred with tears, but I managed. "I'm locked in my room. I can't face them." She didn't hesitate. "Okay, I'm 2 blocks away. Open the window." I crawled over and unlocked the latch, sliding it just wide enough to pass through. Claire's arms wrapped around me in the darkness of my balcony nook, her familiar lavender-scented shawl swallowing me in warmth. She didn't say anything at first, just held me until my sobs subsided into ragged hiccup. Finally she whispered, "You don't have to do this alone." I nodded against her shoulder, mind whirling. "I feel like I'm falling and there's no bottom," I admitted. I trusted them. "We'll build the bottom," Claire promised. She brushed wet strands of hair from my forehead and slipped her phone into my hand. "You've got mail." I opened the email from Jason. The subject line read "Next Steps" and "Evidence Log." Inside was a neatly formatted PDF, a timeline of every transaction labeled screenshots of bank statements, the audio clip transcription, and a bulleted list of questions for our lawyer, complete with timestamps, reference codes, and room for notes. At the bottom he'd typed, "Love you? We'll get through this. J." My chest tightened. His steadfast organization always cut through my panic like a lighthouse beam. Claire led me back inside and into the living room where I sank onto the couch. She perched on the armrest, her presence a gentle shield. "You need more than proof," she said. "You need a moment to grieve." I blinked, horrified. "Grieve? For what?" "For the lie," she nodded. "For the childhood you believed in." I closed my eyes and thought of every color-coded calendar Laura had hung in our hallway, every pep talk she'd given over math homework, every scraped knee I'd kissed better. Those memories glimmered with love, even now, and each one felt like a betrayal. Claire reached into her tote bag and pulled out a small photo album she'd made, pages filled with snapshots of my life, birthday parties, my college graduation, Jason and me at that pet adoption fair. She handed it to me. "You're more than their mistakes," she said. "Look at all this." I thumbed through the pages, and by the time I reached that shot of my freshman year dorm room, with me and Claire hugging our pizza slices like we'd won the lottery, I realized I was smiling. A choked laugh escaped me, surprising both of us. "See?" Claire said. "You're still you, all of you." I closed the album and felt something shift inside, a fragile spark of resolve. But before I could speak, my phone pinged again. This time it was a text from Grandma Esther. "Dearest Sarah, I heard what happened. I knew Laura before you were born. She was once a spirited girl who ran away from home at 16 because her father forced her into a scholarship she didn't want. I wrote her a letter then, begging her to come back. Please know you are loved beyond measure. Grandma E." My breath caught. I'd barely known Grandma's history, only that she lived in Tacoma and sent cards on my birthday and Christmas. But this letter hinted at a cycle of sacrifice and secrecy that spanned generations. I pressed my thumb to the screen and replied, "Thank you. I love you." Claire placed a hand over mine. "Grandma E believes in you," she said softly. "And so do I." A knot loosened in my chest. I realized that while my world had been built on shaky ground, I still had pillars of support. Claire's unwavering loyalty, Jason's meticulous planning, Grandma's unconditional love. Those foundations were strong enough to hold me as I pieced together the shattered parts of my life. I exhaled slowly. "Okay," I said, voice firmer than I'd felt in days. "Tomorrow at 8, I'm meeting the lawyer. I'll bring the evidence package Jason made. Then we figure out repayment schedules, restitution, whatever it takes." Claire stood and stretched, offering me a tissue. "And I'll be right by your side, every step." As she helped me wipe away the last traces of tears, I took a deep breath and felt the knot in my chest give way to a steadier rhythm. The room, the house, would always carry the echo of betrayal, but it would also bear witness to my reclaiming of power. I was still Sarah Thompson, daughter, sister, fiancée, friend, and survivor. Later that evening, Jason called to check in. We spoke for nearly an hour, mapping out questions for the lawyer, pinpointing witnesses, Jessica at the bank, the barista who'd slipped us the receipt, even Dad, should he choose to testify. His calm voice was the final anchor I needed. When I finally crawled into bed, exhaustion settled in my bones, but it was a different exhaustion, the kind that follows a long overdue reckoning. I closed my eyes, imagining the sunrise over Green Lake Park, imagining myself walking its path tomorrow with evidence in hand and allies at my side. Tonight, I allowed myself to rest. Tomorrow, I would rise and begin the work of rebuilding, not just my finances, but my trust, my boundaries, and the story I would tell about who I truly am. The next morning, the first pale light of dawn found me lacing up my sneakers in the quiet of my apartment, the sting of yesterday's tears still lingering in my chest but tempered by a fragile spark of determination as I stepped onto the tree-lined streets of Queen Anne and jogged toward Green Lake Park. By the time I reached the lakeside path, the sun had fully risen over the city skyline, turning the ripples on the water to molten gold and steadying my ragged thoughts as I paused mid-stride, closed my eyes, and inhaled deeply. Every betrayal of the past 24 hours still throbbing in my mind. Yet here, in the gentle hush of dawn, I realized I could choose how to move forward. Pulling out my phone, I reviewed the PDF Jason had sent me before bed. A meticulously organized evidence and action plan, complete with screenshots of bank statements, transcripts of my mother's recorded confession, timestamps of every odd transfer, and bulleted questions for our lawyer, topped with the appointment reminder. Tomorrow, 8:00 a.m., Harborview Law Offices. As I jogged the final half-mile, I rehearsed my opening line. I have proof. I need legal options to reclaim my funds and hold my parents accountable. And envisioned the lawyer's nod, the weight of his pen as I signed a retainer, the first tangible step toward justice. Returning home, Claire greeted me on the porch with her triumphant high five, clipboard in hand and a steaming "You've got this" coffee mug under her arm, and together we settled at my kitchen table, where I walked her through our plan, meet attorney Rachel Wynn at Harborview, compile a chronological timeline of every transaction, see Figure 5-05-00 cents, family gifts, 3, $20,000 0 cents emergency fund, B desk, 23, $25,000 0 cents. Wedding fund drained, gather witness statements, Barbara Jessica Lee from Capitol Hill Bank, Robert Miller's forwarded email, prepare counterclaims for unauthorized withdrawals and breach of fiduciary duty, and draft a final email to my parents, setting a deadline for voluntary repayment. While reading over the timeline, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number, showing a photo of an aged handwritten envelope addressed to Sarah Thompson and a message, "You owe your mother a chance to explain," revealing Grandma Esther's intervention and stretching the lineage of family secrets further back. And just as Claire packed away her clipboard, I spotted a dark sedan idling outside my building, its tinted windows reflecting the morning light. I snapped a discreet photo and added it to our evidence folder as potential intimidation. By mid-afternoon, our planner bulged with printed documents, notarized bank statements, and a detailed phone log of every suspicious call. I updated. "Jason," he replied instantly, "proud of you. I'll be at the office until 6, text if anything changes," and his unwavering support felt like a shield. As the sun dipped low, I celebrated with a glass of sparkling water. Hydration celebration, Claire called it, and drafted the final email to my parents. A formal invitation to meet at 8 a.m. with the evidence packet attached and a hope to resolve matters without escalation. I hesitated only a moment before pressing send, declaring my boundaries and reclaiming ownership of my life. That evening, Claire cooked a simple pasta dinner and we toasted to new beginnings, the first genuine spark of hope I'd felt since discovering my stolen wedding fund. No longer a victim of my family's deception, but an advocate for myself, armed with evidence, strategy, and an unwavering support network. Lying in bed, I replayed the day's triumphs. Dawn's golden light on Green Lake, the crisp clarity of our action plan, Grandma's unexpected message, the ominous car, and closed my eyes, resting in the knowledge that tomorrow I would rise, not as a broken daughter, but as Sarah Thompson, empowered, prepared, and ready to rebuild. That morning, sunlight filtered through the blinds of Harborview law offices as I took a shaky breath and slid the evidence packet across the polished conference room table. Inside were 300 pages of bank statements, audio transcriptions of my mother's confession, security camera stills, emailed chains, and even the photo of the dark sedan that had lingered outside my apartment. Mom and Dad sat flanking attorney Rachel Wiman, her poised presence a sharp contrast to their ashen faces. Michael Thompson's finger traced the timeline of each unauthorized withdrawal. $5,000, 0 cents, on November 15 labeled family gifts, $20,000, 0 cents, on December 3 for an emergency fund, and the final $25,000, 0 cents, wedding account, drained on December 23. I watched their shoulders slump as Rachel calmly explained the counts of misappropriation of funds and breach of fiduciary duty, and the possibility of seeking full restitution plus punitive damages. When she paused to let the gravity of it sink in, I spoke up. "I don't want to destroy our family," I said, my voice steady despite the tremor in my chest. "I want accountability and a chance to rebuild trust." I laid out my terms. An immediate $5,000, 0 cents payment, followed by quarterly installments of the same amount, plus $2,000, 0 cents toward legal costs. In that tense silence, Claire's FaceTime window blinked onto my phone screen. She held up a little whiteboard reading, "You deserve better," and her unwavering eyes gave me the courage to stand my ground. Tears welled in Laura's eyes as she admitted she'd panicked when her art gallery lost a $15,000, 0 cents commission, and Dad confessed they'd never meant to hurt me, only protect me from financial stress. Rachel proposed a non-judicial settlement conference to keep the process private and swift. I agreed, determined that our family's healing should begin without a public trial. Just then, the office door opened, and Grandma Esther shuffled in on her cane, her presence both surprising and comforting. She handed me the faded envelope she'd texted earlier, the same one revealing a decades-old loan she'd made to her own mother. "Bringing secrets into the light is how we free ourselves," she whispered, and even Dad looked humbled by her wisdom. Rachel drafted the family settlement and restitution agreement, a $5,000, 0 cents down payment by check that afternoon, 3 more $5,000, 0 cents installments at quarterly intervals, $2,000, 0 cents in legal fees within 30 days, and a year of shared transparency over our finances, plus mandatory family counseling for 6 months. Dad signed first, pen trembling. Then Mom handed over the cashier's check, her tears trailing down her cheeks. Alex popped up on FaceTime holding a spatula engraved with "Sweet Justice," and Jason texted congratulations, along with a plan for a victory walk later that evening along the Elliott Bay Trail. As we left Harborview, Grandma whisked us off to Cafe Flora for a celebratory lunch, her laughter lightening the air. Back home that evening, I saw the $5,000, 0 cents deposit pending in my banking app and felt a mixture of relief and sorrow. Relief that justice had been served, sorrow for the trust I'd lost. Jason reminded me over the phone that while money could be reclaimed, rebuilding trust would take time. But as I looked out over the twinkling lights of Queen Anne, I felt something I hadn't in months. The confident beat of my own power, echoing louder than any family secret. Last weekend, I escaped the whirlwind of repayment schedules and therapy sessions by slipping over to Grandma Esther's cozy Tacoma bungalow, an oasis of floral chintz and the gentle scent of chamomile tea. She greeted me with that familiar twinkle in her eye and presented a stack of worn envelopes tied in faded ribbon. "I promised you a bonus insight," she said, settling us in her sunroom where lace curtains filtered the light into a soft glow. The first envelope revealed a yellowed thank you note from 1975, acknowledging a $250.00 scholarship she'd turned down so she could help cover her mother's rent. As I traced the elegant cursive, I realized that Grandma's quiet sacrifice mirrored my own journey. I had invested trust in my family only to see it misused, and now I was learning to honor my resilience. Next, she unveiled a small oil-painted portrait of her younger self, wind-swept hair and fierce eyes, and on the back scrawled in her handwriting, "The storm reveals the true lighthouse." It hit me like a revelation. My family's betrayal had been the storm, and my newfound strength was the beacon guiding me forward. We sipped tea as she recounted working 3 jobs, typing manuscripts by day, waiting tables at night, delivering telegrams on weekends to keep her family afloat, no one ever knowing but her. Then her old cordless phone buzzed with a FaceTime call from Alex, holding up my childhood scrapbook he'd unearthed in our attic. He flipped to a pressed flower I'd picked at Green Lake Park when I was 10, and Claire chimed in to remind me it symbolized my promise to chase beauty, no matter how broken things got. Their surprise cameo felt like a lifeline thrown into choppy waters, a reminder that some bonds outlast every betrayal. As I left Grandma's house clutching that portrait and note, I understood that this side story wasn't just a detour, it was a compass, teaching me that true empowerment lies not only in reclaiming what was lost, but in nurturing the quiet strengths that carry us through. That Friday morning I woke to a flurry of notifications. Local art blogs were buzzing about my mother's public apology. Headlines like, "Gallery Director Admits Financial Misconduct" and "Collector Trust Shattered" scrolled across my screen as reporters quoted her Instagram confession, "I betrayed my daughter's trust, and I will spend every day earning it back." Despite the sting of seeing her reputation tarnished, I felt a strange relief. The consequences I'd demanded were unfolding. That afternoon, Jason and I accompanied Mom and Dad to their first financial ethics workshop at the Bellevue Family Center, where they sat at the front table, trembling pens poised over workbooks titled Consequences and Accountability. As they role-played scenarios about unauthorized withdrawals and victims' emotional trauma, I watched Laura's hands shake with each underline of the word betrayal, and I realized that owning up was only the first step toward true restitution. Later, I hosted a virtual town hall of repair with our extended family, 10 relatives who shared candid reflections on how my parents' actions had hurt them. Midway through, Julia broke down, confessing that a long ago $10,000 loan she'd given Mom after college had never been repaid, and had left her struggling to pay rent, exposing a deeper layer of resentment I'd never known. My brother Alex then proposed serving as independent trustee of a new family trust, complete with quarterly audits and mandatory notifications for any withdrawals over $1,000, ensuring no one could ever act unilaterally again. As Alex spoke, Claire's FaceTime cameo with a gold halo filter proclaiming angel investor reminded me that I wasn't alone, that true allyship could transcend blood ties when they faltered. By evening, formal letters from Capitol Hill Bank confirmed that Jessica, the barista-turned-bank accomplice, had been permanently barred from authorizing any account changes, and that Mom's scheme had triggered a misconduct record on her consumer profile. Though I winced at the sight of her name blacklist in art circles, I recognized that accountability sometimes demands real consequences. Dad then surprised me with a framed printout of our town hall transcript, circle-shaped text of each confession and vow, hung on glass like a modern art piece, a tangible reminder of this turning point. And as Jason arrived with hot cocoa crowned by whipped cream snowflakes and spoons engraved sisterhood and brotherhood, I realized that while money had been reclaimed, the deeper lesson was about forging new bonds, built on transparency, compassion, and respect. Standing on my balcony that night, sipping the sweet warmth of victory cocoa, I felt the city lights of Queen Anne flicker in sync with my own steady heartbeat. The chapters of deceit and betrayal would always linger in our family lore, but now they were balanced by a chapter of unflinching honesty and collective healing. And for the first time, I truly believed that rebuilding was not only possible, but already underway. If Sarah's journey resonated with you, share this story with your loved ones and spark a conversation about the power of transparency and trust in every family.